Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Grim Tutors, your one-stop shop for all things Magic the Gathering. I'm Colton, also known as Pez.
And I'm Oblivion. So, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're talking about the echelon of Magic the Gathering.
The upper or the lower?
Upper.
Oh, high tier.
High tier.
Okay. So,
Commander.
Oh, okay. All right.
The most popular Magic the Gathering format there is.
Really?
Really.
Couldn't have guessed.
Couldn't have thunk that. Huh?
Well, that's true. Well, we can't do that by ourselves. We need help.
No, we do.
It's a multiplayer format, so we need more friends.
At least two of them, right?
Yeah. So we did that.
Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
We would like to introduce everyone to our friends, Beth and Scott. They are here to help us teach you how to play the format of Commander in Magic the Gathering. So thank you so much for joining us and participating in this fun round of shenanigans. I'd like to take the opportunity to have you guys introduce yourselves. So Beth, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Beth. I am a charity Commander streamer, and I go online almost all over the socials as Queen of Cardboard. You can find me streaming Magic, playing Magic, going to events, and playing Commander. It's pretty much all I do. And we do charity. So this year we have our Birds of Paradise charity stream. We have Autism Over 21, the Fisher House, Mental Health Magic stream, and at the end of the year, it's probably my favorite stream, I think it's going to be, is the Sheldon Menery stream in support of cancer research that we'll be bringing back again for a second year.
That's awesome.
Incredible.
Thank you so much for being here, Beth.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Thanks for asking me.
We'll pass it on to the handsome man at the bottom of your screen here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Scott Larabee. I am on the Commander Rules Committee. And in real life, I work at Wizards of the Coast, where I deal with professional Magic play, which is like the opposite of Commander. So I live in both worlds. And quick disclaimer, I am an employee, so any opinions you hear are my own and not of my employer. And thanks a lot for having me on. Should be fun.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you for being here.
Commander is a format in Magic the Gathering unlike any other, and that is because it is a multiplayer format. It's not just 1v1. You got to have some pals to be able to play. So let's talk a little bit about where this came from and how it started, kind of the origin story of Commander.
Well, I can give you the 2-minute bit on that. There was a gentleman wrote an article in a Duelist magazine, which was a magazine put out by Wizards of the Coast back in the late 90s, early 2000s, where he wrote an article about a format he made up, which it contains the DNA of Commander. Some guys at a play group up in Anchorage, Alaska, modified it a little bit, took it and made it kind of what it became. And then Sheldon Menery, who was in the Air Force at the time, was deployed in Anchorage for 4 years, met this group, played the format, and went, hey, there's something here. And when he left Alaska and moved to Virginia to continue his career in the Air Force, he introduced local groups there how to play, slowly introduced it to judges on the Magic Pro Tour, of which Sheldon was one. It was known as the judges format for years because the only people that played it were judges in the evening after Pro Tours. That's how I found out about it. I was a friend of Sheldon and watched them play at one Pro Tour, played at the next Pro Tour, and that was in 2005, and I've been playing ever since. Joined the Rules Committee, which is a body that governs the rules of Commander, in 2008. And here we are.
And here we are. So it's, as we've talked about before, Magic's been around we're heading into the 31st year. Magic the Gathering is as old as Oblivion is. Which, I mean, what a year, 1993. You got Magic, you got me, you got Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. Just a stellar showing. It is crazy to think about how there was a game for so long before Commander even was kind of thought of or birthed, as it were, from just some folks hanging out and having a good time. But I think that's definitely indicative of the overall vibe, the je ne sais quoi, if you will, of Commander, that it's just being able to to gather and sling spells with your pals. I know that Sheldon Menery is considered the godfather of Commander, the true OG, the king, the titan himself. What would you say, and I'll gear this question towards Beth, what would you say Sheldon's impact specifically on the game of Magic the Gathering is?
Woo! You didn't throw me a softball there at all.
You said you wanted to make Scott cry, so I did it. I made you cry first. Ha ha ha.
I think the great thing that Sheldon did for Magic the Gathering, and I'm going to refer a lot to one of his last interviews with BDM that was shown in Vegas, was that taking Commander out of the rest of Magic, the Pro Tour is this very high stress, high intensity, high stakes environment. And when you go from that to Commander is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be, in Sheldon's words, where every deck has a chance, where you get to spend time with good people, and every deck does a thing, and then eventually the game ends. And it's very much the opposite, where it's okay to durdle a little bit. It's okay to try something new. It's okay to try a less than optimal play to get somewhere fun. That's Commander and Magic. Going on even further than that, the community, I got to know Sheldon through social advocacy, and that's how we really clicked. So I think the social advocacy that Sheldon did for the game, and that the RC is continuing by showing that there is no room for hatred, there's no room for misogyny, there's no room for any kind of bad behavior, and instilling that not only in people who play Commander but in the judges as well is something that is never going to be taken away. I know as a female in the community, I would never have felt comfortable playing in events. I would have never felt comfortable in a game store, and I've been playing again outside of my kitchen table for, I'd say, about 3 years now, where I've been welcome in every space I've come into and felt comfortable in almost every space. And a lot of that goes to the work that Sheldon is passionate about and has done for us. So that's what I think he's done for Magic.
Which, no small feat. I wouldn't
Absolutely.
think. I, don't want to speak for the man, but that's, whew. So that's a lot. That's a lot of skill. It takes a special kind of person to be able to not only create something, right? He created, so to say, something tangible, right? The game, the format, the way that we play and sling these spells, but he's also created, I think,
That
some
community.
Exactly. Like there's people that wouldn't be here, there's people that wouldn't be able to be connected without the things that he did, and it's building a vibe, building a place where people feel safe, comfortable, confident, hang back and have fun. That is not an easy task. So I think that just goes to show the importance of Sheldon Menery, not only as a person but also the legacy that he's gonna have on the game for forever. So, and especially with Beth and Scott, they worked closely with Sheldon and were also his personal friends. So those two I consider kind of like Sheldon's torchbearers. If he's the big Olympic flame, they are the ones that carry the torch to the next place and on to the next. So I think that's why it's super important that they're here with us.
Absolutely.
So I do want to correct that a little bit, because I think that no one person can step in Sheldon's shoes. And it was something that I definitely struggled with last year following that interview and kind of being called out by Sheldon personally. I think that all of us are Sheldon, that we all have a little piece to carry that torch, because I'm going to be honest, if it was just me and Scott, I don't know that we would be here in another year, because it's a lot of things that he's done. And I don't think any one person or any two people can carry that legacy. I think it's on all of us to continue pushing forward for better things in the community and for Commander itself as a format.
Sheldon always said that he couldn't do it alone.
If you're doing it alone, you're doing it wrong.
Doing it wrong. Exactly. He led, but he knew he couldn't do it himself. And, the rules committee kind of existed, was a means of, back then when it started, there was 100 to 1,000 people playing, and that was it. And it was, it was a lot of fun, and it was a way to get together and kind of mold this format together. But when it really took off, it changed. and the rules committee can't do it alone. We've got an advisory group now that helps us, because we don't, the five of us now, we don't have time to sit there and read everything about Commander, but we've got a whole bunch of people that bring us stuff. Hey, did you hear about this? Did you hear about this? And it works really well as
And
it is now. But
that is one thing that, if I recall from my learning about Magic, is that it is Commander is different versus other formats, because the Commander Rules Committee themselves are the ones that make the banned and restricted and announcements that you'll see that we've talked about before, but they specifically are the body that takes care of Commander.
It's not unique now, but it was for a long time. There's also a separate group that works on Pauper, for instance.
Oh, that's right.
There's kind of a rules committee for Pauper now, and they kind of do that. It's led by Gavin Verhey, who's also a Wizards employee, but the people that are on it, the committee, are not, and they advise. Ours is a little different from that, in that I work at Wizards, but I'm not the leader of the RC. None of us are really the leaders of the RC. We all do our thing, and we take turns and we share responsibilities. But Sheldon's purpose in bringing Commander to the world was, and he always said, was a respite from competitive play. Like, Magic was always competitive play. There was some casual social play going on, but nobody wrote about it. Very little was written about it. There were people that were trying to do it, but he really, wanted to have this is why at the Pro Tour, when the judges played in the evening, it wasn't, we don't have to focus. We don't have to, be on our game. We can just sit around and have a good time and play the game. Our focus, our philosophy is that it's a social format, not a competitive format, and that winning's not the most important thing. Getting together, having fun with your friends is the most important thing. Winning is secondary.
Unless you're playing Scott.
Well, that's just such an interesting thing that I personally hadn't considered, because, of course, the first format that I learned how to play was Commander, and Commander already existed when I learned how to play. I didn't live in a world where Commander didn't exist. So all of the heavy competitive, going to an RCQ and qualifying for a Pro Tour, that is a life of Magic that I've never led. And so it is interesting to kind of have that obvious light bulb of, that was kind of all you did. You either played at your house, at your kitchen table, or at your local game store on Friday nights, or you were a comp grinder trying to qualify for something. We've kind of mentioned it. I do want to point out that Commander is different than other formats. There are some things about the rules that are a little bit different, as well as kind of, quite honestly, how you play the game is different. If you are used to Sling and Standard, Commander's going to be a little bit different.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are some key differences that make Commander unique versus the rest of the format world?
I think the singleton is definitely one of those.
Yeah, I would say the most important thing is the multiplayer aspect, although it is played in 2-player versions, but we think the best way to play is with 3 or more, 4 being optimal. The singleton is definitely a huge part of it. Other than basic lands, you cannot have more than one of a card in your deck. The Commander itself, there's this card in your deck that doesn't start in your deck. It starts in a separate place called the command zone. It's like it's in your hand, but not. And so you always have access to it, which is interesting. And then that Commander also has other functions. One, it determines what color cards you're allowed to play in your deck. Every Commander has a color identity, and its color identity, for the most part, is the symbols that you see up in the top right of a card in its mana cost. But sometimes the symbols in the text box are different colors, and the totality of those determines which colors you can play. For instance, later, I can't find it now.
But, Captain Sisay.
For instance, for Captain Sisay is a good example, and
or Tazri, I think.
Nijila.
Penrith.
But at its basic level, here's a card. This is Aowen. This will be in the deck I'm playing. I'm not going to play it as the commander, and this color card, the cost in the top is white, red, blue, so I can only have white, red, and blue cards in my deck. The other thing that's important is that Commander is a 40 life format, so you start at 40 life. And the Commander, if you take 21 or more points of damage from a single Commander, you lose. So the commander is very central, very important to the format. There are other differences in the game. The cards that you're not permitted to play with that are banned are different from other formats, and the reason why we ban them is different from other formats. So all those things in totality. I guess you play with a 100-card deck, which is also very different.
Yep.
Given the singleton nature of it, it allows you to play more cards. The games are, every time you play the deck, it can tend to be very different because you rarely get to see all 100 cards. And yeah, so it's all very different from what you would normally play when you can put 4 copies of a card in your deck in a 60-card deck, or you're playing sealed deck that's 40 cards. It allows for more variation. We believe it allows for interesting deck building because you need to get to 100 cards, although that's never my problem. My problem is getting from 200 to 100.
Me too.
So true.
I should really say 105 to 100 because the last 5 babies I have to cut are the worst.
Oh yeah.
So
cut a land. It's fine.
Yeah. So
No!
it's just, and then the dynamic of gameplay is very different, and that's what I like about multiplayer. It's kind of like Magic's board game. If one person is really powerful in the game at some point, the other 3 can kind of gang up, which is not something you can do in one-on-one play. So the games tend to kind of even out over time in the game, and then somebody else will become powerful, and then everybody turns on them, and then we kill Beth first.
Yeah, usually we try to anyway. The variance and the difference between Commander and any sort of like 1v1 4 format is so different, but in not in a bad way, just in a truly different way. Like threat assessment when you're playing Modern is there is me and there's the other person, and I have to beat them somehow, right? And when you're playing Commander with a group of your friends, it's okay, well, this guy's trying to counter all of my spells, and this guy has 10,000 1/1s that he would like to punch me in the face with. And this guy, I don't know what he's gonna do, but it seems like he can just
win the game at any point.
Yeah, he's just like ready to go. And this one is trying to just kill every creature that I have, and so your threat assessment and how you handle that is different. Kind of like your table politics, so to say, are different. But I agree that it's a very social game because I've never felt relaxed playing a game of Standard. Granted, I haven't like gone and played Standard, but the idea is kind of terrifying. Whereas if I'm playing a game of Commander, it's just me and my 3 pals.
Yeah, you're all just hanging out.
Slinging spells. Everybody gets to be a wizard. It's fun.
I wanted to say there's something about Commander that people don't talk about a lot. It's turn order. 3 people take their turn before you take your turn. In one-on-one play, 1 person takes their turn before you take your turn. This is very subtle, but it's often important. Like you want to sequence your stuff to take advantage of that sometimes.
Yes,
Absolutely.
The seat that you are in can make a huge impact on what you do. And it also has because there is more than just you and another person, everybody on their first turn gets to draw a card, even if you're the first player, which is different than other formats. You also get 1 free mulligan. So instead of in your 1v1 formats where if you mulligan, you're immediately going down to 6, in Commander, you get a free second 7. So when in Commander, when you mulligan the first time, you get to have another 7 cards, and you don't have to go down to 6 unless you choose to mulligan again.
There's also a really big rule that is the most important rule of Commander, which is called Rule 0, which warps the game for your play table. You were just talking about mulligans, for example. I know that on any table I've ever played, you get as many mulligans as you want, because it's more important to play a game that's fun for everyone than it is to sit there and play a land and pass. I know that at the RC, when you're playing on their table, that if you don't have a land for 3 turns, they're going to tell you to go find one. That's just kind of one of those things where it's like, it's what your goal is at the table. So everybody talks about Rule 0. It's not only making sure that your decks are all aligned, because there's so much variety of what you can play, but it's also making sure that you understand what's going to happen at that table, and what you're looking for in that game, because there are people out there who play Commander competitively and they want to win. That's their goal. And there are people out there like myself who kind of just want to have a good time. I want to chill with my friends. I want to play the commander that Sheldon Menery imagined, and usually lose because Scott's killing me. But it's fine because I get to play and have a good time with my friends. Like, I'm more interested in having a conversation and being like, oh, I've never seen that before, and being excited about the joy of Magic than winning every single time.
9 times out of 10, I will not win a game of Casual Commander because I'm just
Right.
there for the vibes. If I want to play fancy cards, I'll go run a CEDH pod and try that, and it's fine. But
and Beth's right. There's a set of rules for Commander, and Rule 0 is a way to break those rules. However, people misunderstand what it's about. It doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want. It means that the table can agree that everybody can do certain things. And I think the mulligan rule, like what you described, Oblivion, is the mulligan rule. But like on our stream, when we play, and when I play with most people, we ignore that mulligan rule. We use a completely different one, which is just take 7. If you don't like it, put it aside, take 7 more, and keep going. So you only shuffle once. And with the following caveats: don't cheat.
Right.
Don't try and mulligan into your combo. And our kind of line is, did you get 3 lands? You're done.
Yeah.
You should keep that one and go.
Yeah.
And
that's always what I do.
Yeah.
If we're doing the, like, you can mulligan however many times, it's like, okay, cool. I have 3 lands, and I'm okay to play the game now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also can be like kind of what you're looking for in a game, right? So are you looking for a streamlined A plus B equals C, this is how I win? Are you trying to make a giant army of tokens to beat your friends to death? Are you just trying to interact with other people? Like, there can always be different kinds of things. Rule 0 can also include things like, there's a card that's not legal, it's an uncard, it's silver border, it's
or partnering up cards that don't have partner that kind of like would go together, like Hans Eriksson and Safi Eriksdotter. So, they're brother and sister.
Ooh.
Or Olivia and Edgar.
They're not brother and sister.
Hans Eriksson and Safi Eriksdotter.
I don't know who those people are.
Wouldn't that be his daughter, like it says in the card?
Eric's daughter? I have no idea. It's
not
no, because they're brother. Because it's Eric's
like
Eric's son and Eric's daughter.
Oh,
but it's not spelled daughter.
Yeah. It's not,
yeah, I got you. It's the Viking word.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, no, and you're right. That is a Rule 0 thing. Like, if you want to do something different that's not normally allowed by the rules, you get permission from the table beforehand.
Yeah.
And if anybody at the table says no, then you don't argue. You back off and you do something else.
Yes.
Because the standard is that you follow the rules. Going outside of that is the exception.
Yeah, I would say for us and for most people, you can do what you want as long as it's of equal power level, and I am saying that in quotations, and I will explain why in a minute, but of equal power level, and you don't cheat. I play whatever goofy, silly stuff you want, as long as you're not like pulling from an imaginary sideboard that you don't have in the format of Commander.
You want to show off your Dr. Julius Jumblemorph deck? Go right ahead.
Let's do it. And
everyone agrees. Yeah.
And everyone agrees.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
And I say, power level in quotations because what some people will say is, this is strong or this is not strong. Often it's kind of like coffee or a stiff drink. What's strong for one person may not necessarily be strong for another. So it's very good when you sit down and have your Rule 0 conversations to understand, like, what does my deck do? What is its objective?
What does the 7 mean?
Yeah. 7 means nothing. How do you win? Do you have a set way in your deck that says I win the game, or a combo of cards that say I win the game? Or are you just hoping to beat your friends to death and survive the longest?
Yeah, I was gonna say go battle cruiser,
Yeah, just knowing and understanding what your deck does and how to translate that to other people is important.
Yeah.
I disagree with using numbers for power level. I actually came across a tool that Sheldon brought to me, which is the EDH multiverse. And it's more of a graph of what turn your deck is popping off, the amount of control you have in your deck, and what your goals are in that deck. It also has strategies for resolving mismatches in expectation. It has questions to help align so that you're all playing the thing. And it really gives you more of a visual description of what you're trying to do with your deck and what everyone at the table is trying to do, rather than just saying, my deck's a 7. And this was something that I've written about and Sheldon had written about. And there's actually a website now, it's edhmultiverse.com. And I use this at all of my streamed games, especially because obviously when you're streaming, you want the same expectation and you don't want to have to resolve difference of expectations live. So I definitely do a little more into my roll 0 when I'm getting ready to stream. And this is a tool that I use, especially when someone's like, it's a new deck, I don't know what power level it is. I'm like, let's check out the graphic.
Definitely have been a person on Beth's stream that accidentally brought a little more power to the game than I was expecting.
Yeah, me too.
The rules committee as a group tends to prefer Battlecruiser.
Yeah.
And that's because I think that Battlecruiser is the 7, literally. I don't think anybody's gonna ever argue with Battlecruiser Magic. What the problems that come up are combos, fast mana, things like that are the thing that tend to get people go, oh, your deck was too powerful this table, you said it was this. And I think that in general, Battlecruiser is just very even because it's usually about creatures. Most of the decks I've ever designed have been Battlecruiser. I think the Nelly Borka deck is kind of an exception to that. It's Battlecruiser in its own way, but it doesn't have combos. It's just trying to get your opponents to kill each other instead of
which is
instead
way
of
more
you doing
fun.
it yourself. Yes,
I'm so glad that we're going into goad harder.
Yes,
Same.
Such a good mechanic.
Yeah, Scott's favorite thing is to make sure that you can't attack the way that you want to.
Yeah, you can swing, just not the way that you thought you could.
Well, it's that Jeskai commander, the wall that reverses turn order, or not reverses turn order, but you can only attack the person to your left. That one's really funny.
Sounds very silly.
Just changes up the dynamic because you only have to worry about one person you're attacking and one person you're defending, and the other two are irrelevant.
Right.
For the most part, which is a very different dynamic for a game of Commander.
I think it's interesting too, as we get more competitive players into and more people just in general into Commander, you get more people that want to play combos. They want to play faster. They want to play stronger. They want to play those cards. And it's kind of like you have to take them back and be like, all right, there's a place for you too, but this is where we're at this table. And that's kind of what happened when we first played, is that, you know, Pez came out with this Displacer Kitten combo deck, and I'm just sitting here going, all right, so we got to talk about expectations, but it's okay. And I think the other thing that you need to be able to do in a game of Commander is speak about what is bothering you and what is like happening at the table while it's happening. And I remember I said something along the lines of, yeah, I think this is a little above the power level that I was looking for. And Pez, to like your credit, because this is where I think I knew that I would have you guys back anytime, was you immediately said, okay, and you got rid of your own combo. And you're not going to see that in competitive Magic because that's not what you do. But in a game of Commander, when you've realized, and I've done this myself, that you are making the table unhappy and not in a fun way, like in a, you know, just this is a miserable experience and why are we here way, you can do that. I've scooped from a table before when I've accidentally had a situation where I look around and I'm like, oh, everyone's having no fun and I am not winning. And that's not what I want to do. And I've just said, hey, all right, we're out of here. We'll start another game, you know, later. And that is like the community and stuff. That's kind of what I learned from Sheldon specifically, that type of behavior of like, how do we fix problems at the table with a minimum of feel bads?
Because sometimes it is hard you end up bringing a gun to a knife fight and you didn't realize it was a gun. I would say is probably the best way to describe what happened that first time that we played with Beth. Like,
I think it was like the second time.
Oh yeah, it was the second time. But we thought we didn't think we were bringing the heat.
Yeah, I did.
Well,
not.
if you're new, you don't know, right?
Right.
Right.
Well, and there's, with having so many more cards available in Commander than any other format, Like there's cards that people are never even gonna know exist until you see it for the first time, and two, like you're sitting there going, okay, I'm going to do this, and you're building that deck and you're all excited about it, and you don't really know what it's going to do until you play it the first time and you're like, oh, I did that.
Oops.
I think we've all had that moment.
I bounced Agent of Treachery for 800 times and stole everyone's stuff. Oops.
Monster. Yeah. Big
it's fun to watch new player. If you've got a new player to commander and you're around them a lot, it's fun because you see at first they're not quite sure what to do because they usually borrow a deck, and then they go, oh, I get it, this is fun. They inevitably get to making a broken deck.
Yeah.
And then they have to pull back. I've seen it a lot of times.
Spencer.
I was going to say that also, like Beth said, sometimes she'll just scoop up if, like, I've been in situations where your deck will sometimes just accidentally be really good at a particular early time in the game. And there are times when I hold back, like I could just kill the board and I'm like, you know what? That's not what I came here to do. I came here to have a fun game. So you just don't. Some people can't, their psychological makeup is, oh, if I can win, I'm going to win. Here's something Sheldon once said that we've taken as a maxim on the RC, at least some of us. It's that it is your responsibility of a player for your opponent's enjoyment. And I think if you can take that and internalize it, it will go a long way.
That's such good advice.
Everybody at the table is responsible for everybody else's enjoyment.
I like that
not just their own. In fact, your own enjoyment should be your least priority.
Yeah.
Your highest priority should be to make sure everybody's having a good time.
I think that's
fantastic.
I've got lists of things that annoy me when I play people. I hate people that go into the tank for 15 minutes thinking about it. It's like, come on. That's
what really grinds my gears.
Yeah.
Yes. Going into the tank. People saying they don't have infinite combos, then they do.
It was an accident.
It was an accident. Well,
my deck usually
need to do it.
Yeah.
You didn't need to do it.
Never happened.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really cool is like evolving as a player. And I know Scott has actually really gotten a chance to see me personally evolve as a player. Because when I first had the opportunity to play with Scott and Sheldon, I'd only been playing Commander for maybe 6 months. And I was introduced to these pillars of Commander. And it just happened randomly because the world opened up and we all were able to go to Command Fest Richmond, and I had only been playing for a little bit, but it'd become my whole world, and Richmond's not that far. So we went up and we got to meet Scott and Benny, and I think Sheldon was there as well. And it was just, you had the opportunity to meet people that I don't think we get every other time. I know since then, we get busy or we do this or we do that, but Command Fest Richmond was really special because so many people didn't know what to expect. So everyone was there. It kind of changed. It didn't change how I played right then, but getting the opportunity to get to know Sheldon and Scott and really lean on these huge people in the community for mentorship and advice and watch them play and learn and absorb knowledge really affected who I am as a person, but also especially how I play Commander. When I first started, and don't get me wrong, I still very much like to win, but when I first started, I was that cutthroat player. I would play to win any option that made me feel really good. And now I'm much more about, like, is the table having a good time? Are we doing this? Is this a cool thing? I still like to win, especially if I'm playing Scott. But
I quit my creature with a frying pan and hit my spouse with it?
Yeah, I now I have these things where, like,
you can do that.
I have 2 goose decks. I have one that plays 1/1 counters and hydras, and the other one that just has silly food. And then I can animate my food army, and it's a different vibe. And I don't go into every game going, I have to win, I have to be the best, I have to, I just get to see how decks work, and I can see that deck and be like, oh, that would work really good in this deck. I was actually taking notes at my LGS this morning, playing a couple of games and going, oh, that is something I haven't seen before. I'm gonna put that in this deck, or I'm gonna look for something similar here. And that's really cool as well.
Getting cracked on a new card is like nothing like it, whether it's a card that's coming out or a card that's been around for 10 years, but like something else got printed that made it like extra amazing.
That was me with Devoted Druid when Vizier of Remedies got printed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you could do the like infinite green mana in like modern. That was me. I was
Yeah.
all over that.
You could turn devoted. You could Swift reconfiguration.
Oh yeah,
devoted
now,
druid into
yeah,
a car.
now Swift
is one of my-
reconfiguration. You can turn
My
it into a
favorite
car.
things in Magic is seeing someone tweet and just go, oh my god, look at this card I've never seen. And I'm like,
Yeah.
the card came out 15, 20 years ago. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but then they're just so excited. They're just like, oh my god, I didn't know.
I think
And
you're
there's-
talking about Hoth Queen of Snow's entire Twitter profile.
It's definitely Snow
Yeah.
that does it, but other people do it too. I see
Yeah.
people who have been around a long time. Shivam does this constantly.
Mhm.
He'll just be like, every card is Shivam's favorite card. That's the
This
funny
is my
thing that we talk
favorite
about.
card.
This is my oh, I love that card. It's my favorite card. I'm like, Shivam, you have 1,000 favorite cards, but he'll come across a card that he forgot about. And he's
Yeah.
like, how did I not put this in this deck I currently have? I need to go fix it. And I do the same thing. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'm building a deck and I look back and go, how come? I'm always like, how come nobody's running this card?
Yeah,
Nobody's
so
running this
good.
card. It's ridiculous. How are you not running this card?
My favorite thing to do is go to the game store and like not look through the singles on the computer. I like to go to the bulk box
Mhm.
first and just like
Mhm.
dig through
Thumb
it
through, yeah.
for like cards I haven't seen and see, oh, that's going to be really good. Like, for example, we were just talking about this recently in Modern Horizons 3 is 5-color Eldrazi. Well, all the color Eldrazi right now are super bulk. They weren't printed very much, and I know where they are at my game store. I'm so excited because I'm like, I'm going to dig through this box and I'm going to get all the Eldrazi and I'm going to build this fun Eldrazi deck. And that's just what I love.
Is a fun Eldrazi deck possible?
Yes.
Mhm.
Fun for the person playing it.
That's true.
The fun sliver deck is the impossible.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah.
And that's how you get a combo you didn't know happened.
So I know some of the things that you've kind of mentioned, and something that someone would see online is that if you look for Commander, you might see EDH. They are the same thing, but why? If same thing, why have two names?
The original name of the format was EDH, which stands for Elder Dragon Highlander, and the reason is when the game was being played up in Alaska with one group of 5 people and nobody else, they each chose one of the different original Elder Dragons from the Legends set that came out in 1994, and that is what they played with. And so it was called Elder Dragon Highlander, Highlander being a substitute name for Singleton because the movie
Because there can be
Highlander,
only one.
there can be only one. Right. So
Oh.
that's Magic Player's funny.
That's
So
so smart.
that's where the name comes from. When the format began to attract more and more people, we needed a name we didn't have to explain all the time. So because you weren't playing with Elder Dragons anymore,
Right.
and Highlander is the name of a movie franchise, not a name in Magic. So we came up with the name Commander.
If there's one thing that playing Magic the Gathering makes you good at, it's knowing the 14,000 different ways of saying something that all mean the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and if you want to note that Magic players have a really hard time changing things, people still call it EDH.
Yeah, and then if you don't play competitive Commander, you play CEDH. So clearly we've traveled so far. For people who are wanting to get into Commander or are looking to learn more about Commander as a format, what are some resources that you guys would suggest for people, whether it's like websites or content or anything specific that you can think of?
So first I'm gonna say don't learn Magic by playing Commander. It's really hard. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's the most cards ever played in this format. It's very complicated. Playing with 4 players, having to wait to not only understand what your cards are, but then play them and then understand what other people's cards are, and trying to do all of that at the same time. I highly suggest that you learn to play Magic either with a starter product or a jumpstart pack and one person. And the best way to do that is going to be through Magic Kids. There's so much on learning and teaching Magic on their website. It's one of the official nonprofits through Hasbro, and Wizards of the Coast. They are amazing. You can find them not only online, but you can see them at most Magic Cons and a lot of Magic related events. Other than that, for learning Magic, I'm going to send people right back to your channel because you guys have some great videos out there on the formats and on triggered abilities, the stack, all of that. That's very, you break it down in a great way. And then if you're going to you're at the point where you're like, I'm learning Commander, one, start with a precon. Absolutely start with a precon. Those decks are made to do what you want them to do. And they're the easiest to run.
A precon is a pre-constructed deck. I can see boxes of them behind Scott if he wants to give us a Vanna White show.
Let's pull up one that I designed. How about this one?
Ooh.
So yeah, these are decks that are already made. They're not gonna do well against a lot of finely tuned decks, but they're fun to play. They've got themes, so if you kind of look through them, you can kind of figure out what they do. It even comes with a little helpful sheet that'll tell you kind of what the deck does and what you're trying to do. And sometimes a set will come out with 2 decks, sometimes 4, like with Murders at Karloff Manor, there were 4, and they're designed to be played in what we call a biodome. So if you play all 4 of the Murders at Karloff Manor decks, they're all pretty balanced against each other. What we're gonna play today is going to be a little bit different because we're going to play things that are pre-constructed decks, but they weren't designed to play against each other. So it'll be interesting. But you'll be able to hold your own on these. I have played I've been bored when I'm streaming on our RC channel sometimes, and I'll just pull out a pre-constructed deck and shuffle it up and play, and I've won with them. They're good enough to win, and they're certainly good enough to hold their own in a game.
They give you the colors on the box as well as kind of a brief description of what it does. The one I'm very excited for Bloomborough is Gruel Raccoons. That says it's like
eat
smash,
trash, smash.
Eat trash, smash something.
I also think there's about 3 levels of precon. So there's the starter decks that came out, I think, last year, where they didn't come out with any sets specifically. They came out on their own, and they are literally called starter decks. So that's your level 1. These are really low power but cheap entry, running at about $20 to get you into the deck. Then you've got your regular set commander decks, which are just above that, and they come out with each set. And then above that are your Universes Beyond decks. And I don't know why these ones are more crazy powerful, but the teams really went hard on Warhammer, Doctor Who, and the Lord of the Rings decks. They are definitely a little bit above the other decks for the most part. They're pretty wild. So that's like 3 levels of commander decks to get you started there as well.
And I think if people are interested in picking a creature for the commander, it has to be a legendary creature. For your commander, it has to be a legendary creature. It can also be a planeswalker, but it has to say at the bottom, so and so can be your commander, like Dahada Binder of Wills can Lord Windgrace can be your commander. Even though all planeswalkers are eroded to be legendary, the planeswalker specifically has to say that it can be your commander to be used. So for people who see a creature and they're like, this is legendary, this could be cool, I want to make a deck, where would someone go to do things like that?
Well, I think your first stop for commanders, I highly recommend that people go to the Commander Rules Committee website, which is mtgcommander.net, because there are 2 things. One, there are the rules, and there are 11 of them, plus Rule 0, so 12. And the second thing you want to look at is our philosophy document, which is even more important than the rules, because the philosophy document explains why we do what we do. Why do we, mostly from the standpoint of banning cards and the fact that it's intended to be a social format, not a competitive format. So I think that's a very good starting place. And then I'll pass it to Beth for all the other stuff.
Yeah. So once you've gone past the rules committee and mtgcommander.net, I love EDH Rec, and they have actually a suite of tools for you. They have EDH Rec, they have Commander's Herald. They also have your Commander Spellbook, which tells you all those combos you didn't know that you put in your deck. You can actually put in your whole deck list, and it will tell you if there's a combo in there. Pretty cool. EDH Rec is my absolute favorite for pretty much all things Commander. All of these websites have not only articles written by people who play the game as every day like myself, but they also have this ability where you can search up that legendary card and it's going to suggest to you what to put in that deck, the math of what people are building, and also what your play style is. Like if you're looking to build Nelly Borka Goad, which is what she's built in the pre-con commander deck, or maybe you want to do Nelly Borka, I don't know why you would do this, but Nelly Borka equipment, you could do that. And it's going to give you different options and cards to build for that. And once you get there and you're kind of like, okay, I've got this idea, then you're going to want to do a deck building website. And I love Moxfield is probably my favorite, but EDH Rec has one as well, which is Architect. And you can not only look at other people's decks, but you can put all of your decks and all of your cards there as well. My favorite thing to do is get about halfway through my deck and I'm like, all right, what next? And I click a button and it gives me some ideas to go from there. And then once you've gotten that down and you're like, I'm building decks every day, I've got this, I've got that, I'm going to tell you to go back to your LGS, back to your game store, go through those bulk bins and look at cards that you've never seen, never would get suggested, and consider putting those in your decks. Because this is why you have that arc as a commander player that Scott was talking about, where you're like, oh, I'm going to build a deck and it's fun and I'm having a good time. And then you're going to get really good at it and that deck's going to, blow away your opponents. And then you need to come back down to earth and then find that card that's just silly. And the best way to do that is in your bulk bin, because you'll never have seen it before. If you haven't been playing for 30 years, you don't know that card exists. And honestly, I've been playing off and on for 30 years and I don't know half of those cards because I haven't seen them. I wasn't playing competitively. I wasn't going to my game store. I wasn't tuned into Magic that entire time. So I've missed large blocks of cards that sometimes I see them for the first time and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. They're not available on your game store's website. They're not at TCG Player. I mean, they are, but not the point. You're not looking for them because they're not what's getting suggested to you, because it's not the best card to put in that slot, but you're going to have fun.
I think those are all great places, great resources and tips and tricks to be able to build a deck, find a deck, ask your friends, make something, send them your list, tell them your idea. Commander, I think, is great for playing with your friends, but I think it's also fun to brew with your friends and think of, hey, I have this idea, how would this work? Would it work with this? What cards could be good here? The only other commander specific rule that I can think of is that although your commander is not in your hand, it is in its special command zone. For each time that you cast your commander from the command zone outside of the first, you have to pay 2 colorless mana. So cast your commander the first time, it just is what it is. If it dies and goes back to the command zone, then you would pay 2 additional colorless mana in addition to its costs, and then 4, and then
4.
Yeah,
it's called the commander tax.
Yes. Pay your taxes, especially in commander taxes.
Pay your taxes.
It's also important to note that if your commander does die or is exiled, that there is a moment that occurs. You can see this if you play the Brawl format on Arena, but there is a moment that occurs where if your commander dies and goes to the graveyard or is put into exile, that it will ask you if you would like to move it back to the command zone. So it does not have to stay in exile or in the graveyard forever. You are able to put it back in the command zone, which is an important rule that I didn't know when I started playing. I thought it was just gone forever. It's not.
It has not always been true. No, maybe one time we could do a show on all the rules that used to be in Commander that aren't there anymore, because it's very interesting to hear the history.
Yeah, we would love that. We're gonna move over and we're gonna play a game. We're going to all be playing pre-constructed decks that were designed by the one, the only Mr. Scott Larabee himself. So we'll all be doing something super fun and fantastic and playing those decks. Scott, Beth, is there anything else that you would like to tell the people?
Just play more games, have fun with your friends, surround yourself with good people, and it'll all figure itself out.
Be excellent to each other.
Truer words have never been spoken. If you'd like to support the show, be sure to check us out at patreon.com/thegrimtutors. You can also find us on all social medias at GrimTutorsMTG. The links in the description below will also have our bonfire store and our Jank Mats creator corner area where you can pick up some Tutie Cuties merch and play mats.
Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.
Bye.
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 Obviously, but hold on, hear me out. I have a point.
Well, there's
Mulligan
also
again.
there's
Mulligan again. Thanks for having. Or shit. Thanks for having me. Do you have the hiccups, by the way?
Oh yeah, I did.
Okay. I saw
You were
you.
talking and I was just going.
I thought you were like, because like we're gonna be on the screen the whole time and we're not used to that. So I was like, oh, okay, he can see that I am nodding and looking as though I am paying attention. And I thought that's what he was doing, but then I realized he was going this way.
It's funny.
Okay, handsome.
Yep.
Okay.